Welcome to Conquering Your Clownfish, a podcast dedicated to transforming disabilities into special abilities. I'm your host, Brady Murray. Okay, welcome to the podcast. It is my pleasure now to welcome our next guest. Please allow me to introduce her. I'd like to extend a special welcome to today's guest, Kaley Stymeist. Kaley is surrounded by a house full of boys, and she loves it. She's a mother to 3 boys, in fact. Her oldest boys are twins, and her youngest son, Hudson, was diagnosed with non-speaking autism. Kaley is a registered behavior technician and resides in St. George, Utah. Most of all, she is an unstoppable advocate for inclusion and a passionate champion for the autism community as a whole. Kaley has been able to inspire countless individuals through her Instagram channel, Kaley in 3. Kaley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be talking with you today.
Yeah, this is going to be super fun. I have to say, I am super jealous. All of northern Utah in the month of March wishes that they were in southern Utah. In fact, more than just the month of March, but especially in the month of March. So we're a little bit jealous in the cool temperatures here, and you probably have perfect temperatures down there.
Yeah, we do. We're lucky down here. Lots of sun.
So this is a special episode for me because on this show, we have actually not had the opportunity to be able to welcome a parent or a caretaker of a child that has autism. And this is something that is just weighs on my heart heavy, as I have so many friends and so many close individuals in my life that have a child that has autism and the unique intricacies that come along with that. Every journey looks different. There are no 2 scenarios that are alike. And so thank you for being on the show. I have to say I am a big fan, and largely because as I follow your messaging, what you share really resonates with me, and really the journey and the purpose behind Conquering Your Clownfish and the reason why we want to do this show. So as we jump into it, I want to read a post that you made and would love to have you share a little bit about this. So this is a post that was around inclusion. In fact, I'll just read it. So Kaley had wrote not too long ago, tonight, I took my autistic non-speaking son to a school dance, and I noticed that he was the only kid there, special education class, the only one. It made me really sad, actually. And I get it. Trust me, I get it. It's often hard to just get out of the house and then all the what ifs, but we must also try, because for inclusion to truly happen and be authentic, our kids need to be there. I know it's hard, and I know it might turn out horribly, but it also just maybe might turn out great. And so I would love to talk to you about that. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, so this is the last year that all my boys are in elementary school together. I've just been thinking about that a lot and trying to get as much experience as I can with the 3 of them at the same school. So they had a Valentine's dance, and it was a family Valentine's dance because it's still elementary school, and we weren't going to go. We've always tried to take Hudson to as much as we can. We've just kind of committed to that at a young age, or as my kids were young. My twins were like, we're not going to a dance. And I was like, okay, whatever. Turns out their friends were going, and so they're like, we want to go. So it was very last minute. We were kind of having a hard day as it is, but we were like, all right, let's go. We're just going to go try. Hudson likes music. Might be too loud. We can always go outside. Like, you're always like planning, trying to plan like, okay, what's our outs if we have to? Or you know what? You just go home,
Yep.
So we go to this dance, and it's loud. My twins automatically run outside, and they're playing football with their friends outside. They don't even go in. Yeah. They don't even go in the dance. But Hudson just starts dancing. And I'm looking around, and there's, mostly a lot of little girls dancing in there with their parents, and some, of course, the little boys in there too. But I am looking around, and I notice, you know what? There's not one student from his life skills class, And I just thought, I get that. But it also just kind of made me sad, because I think it's as important it is for Hudson to be there. It's equally as important for his peers to see him there. You know, you were,
No doubt.
yeah, you were saying earlier how inclusion is a two-way street, and I couldn't agree more. We have to, I think as parents, like we want our kids to be accepted and we want them to have like meaningful relationships and be part of a community as much as possible. And we need those accommodations, but we also have to do our part and try. Like we have to go to things. We have to just at least try. And it's hard. It's really hard. And sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you go and you try and you turn around and you go right home. Like I have been there many, many, many times. But
Yep.
It's also, Hudson's also learning. Like he's also getting used to those things. And the more you try, I think he's gotten better at adapting. So yeah, that's just kind of what that post is about.
I'm curious, how did it shake out? So is Hudson a dancer? Does he like to dance typically, or?
Yeah, he's always liked music. He doesn't like dance hardcore, he's not like.
He just kind of gets into
it. He just sways his body. He's just like a little sway. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't even expecting him to dance because right when I walked in, I just thought, all right, there's a lot of lights. It's dark, a lot of lights going on, a lot of sounds, a lot of, kids are talking really loud and parents. And, there was like a popcorn machine and, I'm just listening to all this, looking around going like, this is very overstimulating. But that's the thing, but I was wrong. He went in there and he danced and he loved the lights. And I think he had a good time.
Yep, no question. So there is so much about this that is awesome. So you're correct in saying that inclusion is a two-way street. And so as parents, as caretakers, as advocates, unstoppable advocates, as I like to say, we are very passionate towards school districts or society, friends, parents, etc., of really pounding that drum of inclusion. But it absolutely is a two-way street. And I think for most of us, sometimes the thought of having gone through a long day as it is, and then we get to an evening or whatever time that was, and the thought of like actually going and facing that is honestly the last thing that we want to do. We'd rather just kind of hang out, let the kids watch a movie, and we'll unwind and do whatever it is that we're going to do. But hats off to you. Kudos to you for being able to take Hudson and give Hudson that experience. But I believe even more importantly, letting his light shine to everybody else that was there and his classmates being able to see him in that context that they maybe would never see him in a typical classroom. So great job on that.
It's definitely like Hudson's 9, you know what I mean? He's not 3, and things were different. So I want to say it's been a learning experience for me as well to see the importance of it,
Yeah.
So, and now I see it 1,000%, but it did take a little time.
Yep. One thing that I would say on it as well that I feel super passionate about that I would share with our listeners, the success of the dance had nothing to do with the outcome in my mind. And so the success of how the evening went has nothing to do on whether or not Hudson, did a 10 out of 10 or he had a scenario that was just very challenging and you lasted a minute. Both of those examples would have been a success, and it's because of the effort, right? So I look at my boys and my children that have special needs, is our success, our faith, or our happiness is not dependent on the outcomes. It's dependent on the effort, on us getting out there and being able to do that. If we do it regardless of the outcome, we win, and we know that we're making progress and we're learning. So
totally agree.
Pretty dang cool. I want to share another thing. Like I say, I'm a big fan of the content that you are creating, and there is a post that you have tagged at the top of your, or that you have earmarked at the top of your Instagram channel, and it says this. And so I'll read the words, but the visual is so beautiful. But it says, "I'm an autism mom. I'm not stronger than you are. I'm not doing something you could never do. I'm not braver or more patient. I'm just a mom trying to make a more accepting world for her child. And I think that all of our listeners in a very special way can resonate with that. And all too often we get promoted as these heroes or, special kids only come to special people. And I don't agree with that. And so this is the best I've ever seen that sentiment articulated. And I would love to hear you elaborate on that.
Yeah, like you said, I think many of us parents who have kids with needs hear exactly that all the time. Like, oh, I can never do that. Or, oh, you're an angel, God,
My favorite.
yeah, God knew you could handle it. And although I know those comments are from good places, like people are trying to be nice, yeah, it's just, yeah, I don't agree with that. Like, I'm not this super patient and loving and can do anything. I mean, person, I think, nope, none of us are. Like, we're human beings. We have our struggles and our trials, and we learn and we grow, and you make choices. You make choices I make a choice to be an advocate for Hudson. I make a choice evaluate my life and go, okay, what do we need to do here? And although I will absolutely say Hudson has made me a better person, but it's choices, I think, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think it's really important to get that out there that we're not special people, like any more special or doing things that nobody else could do. You do it because you're a parent and you choose to help your children in any way you can. And I had somebody say to me on that post that they said, they were really nice and they were like, but I disagree because, not all parents could do this. But I feel like, you have good parents and there are bad parents out there, no matter if you have kids with needs or not,
That's right.
And so, yeah, but you still have parents who have autistic kids with a high support needs who aren't great, unfortunately. And so my point is just that we're not doing something that other people can't. We're doing it because we choose to make those choices and love our kids. And we're just trying to get people to see our kids like we do,
That's
they're
right.
not, they're these human beings, they're these human beings who feel and think and act and have thoughts and all this, just like Hudson's 9, like any other 9-year-old kid. I truly, truly believe that in his mind, he's exactly like a 9-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I think people see him as, a baby sometimes or a toddler, and they come and talk to him like, hi, Hudson, hi, and so I just, I don't know. I feel like I'm going on a tangent here, but
No, this is something that I feel very passionate about as well. And that's something that you have shared about Hudson just in relation to he is a little boy, like he's a boy growing. He is an individual that has thoughts and feelings, that has so many amazing things about him. And don't feel sorry for Hudson, right? Like Hudson is singing the song that he's meant to sing. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. If anything, feel sorry for ourselves for not being able to have the perspective that Hudson has, probably in a lot of scenarios that we can learn from for sure. So beautiful on that. In the past, I believe before you even had Hudson, you were a registered behavior technician. Is that correct?
yeah.
And so had you had, I guess, a feeling in your heart towards serving the special needs community, or what was it that led you to do that?
Yeah, I think I just kind of always had just kind of a special place in my heart for kids with disabilities, and kind of just felt like, I wouldn't say always, but throughout college, and high school, I would say actually, I just kind of felt a connection. And like, I remember in high school trying to, like, I volunteered for the Special Olympics and I got to just help someone who was blind, and they just got to lean on me as we ran track, something like that. And just little situations like that throughout my life where I just really enjoyed that. And I feel like I always had the perspective of like, they're just like me. Like, they're not different. You know what I mean? Like, they might look different. Their bodies might act different. They might sound different, but inside they're not. Like, you know what I mean?
That's
Does
right.
that make sense? So, yeah. So in college, I actually played soccer in college. I was on
Did you?
scholarship. Yeah. And that's the only thing that got me through college because I didn't really care to
Yep.
go, so that's what got me through. And then by my senior year of college, I was really into behavioral science. My classes had all aligned, and yeah, that's, what I want to do. And so I got my degree in behavioral science. And right out of college, I moved back home and it wasn't called a registered behavioral technician yet. It was called a behavioral therapist at that point, but same thing. But yeah, so that's what I did right out of college. And I went and worked one-on-one with autistic kids doing ABA therapy. And I kind of just stuck there, I had kind of different things here and there, but it was always in the same field.
Listeners have heard me say this before, and it's something I'm very passionate about. And that is that I believe that life entrusts us with experiences. Some of those experiences we choose, and some of those experiences life chooses for us. And, I look at your decision to be able to pursue this as a choice for your family or for a choice for yourself. And then later, life had a choice to be able to entrust you with a child that has autism. And so what a special synergistic relationship that you had been given prior to being able to have Hudson in your life. And I see that often.
Yeah.
I think that maybe not to that degree where there's an actual specific education that comes, but as I reflect on my life and those experiences that had an impact on me, whether that was in my childhood or growing up or even pre-Nash, my boy that has Down syndrome, there were experiences that were being entrusted to me to prepare me for that experience that was coming and to be able to help me to be able to manage through that, but not just manage, but then ultimately, hopefully, to be able to thrive. I've loved the relationship. So your two boys, your two twins, Asher and Ledger, they're a couple years older than Hudson. And I think that there is probably one of the biggest draws to the stories that you're sharing in your journey is the relationship between your boys. And I wondered if you would be open to talking about that relationship and what that has meant to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I think about my kids, I just think God knew exactly what he was doing, giving me twins and then Hudson. Like, I couldn't ask for a better lineup, for what obstacles were going to come later in our life.
Yeah.
Because my twins were hard. Like, they were little rascals, And I have twin brothers, who are still best friends to this day, and they're like 6 years older than me. And so I was so excited, to have twins. And so when they were little, they're 20 months apart. So I had 3 kids under 2 at one point. Like, it was insane. And Hudson had a late regression. So he did have a crazy birth. Hudson is like a complete miracle. He actually came like when he was emergency C-section, and he came out dead. Like, they had to do CPR on him right for about 20 minutes, and they said he's not going to make it. And so he's always been this miracle. And then at a month in the NICU, they said, "Hey, okay, looks like he's going to live, but it looks like he's going to be a vegetable." And that's literally what they said. Like, those are the words they told me. So yeah, so Hudson is this miracle, the biggest miracle I've ever witnessed. And that's how we've always seen him. And so he, came home, he grew up, and he grew up like not even on track. He grew up like in the superior range. Like, we had 3 specialists following him, and they were like, "Oh my gosh." They tested him out of the early education program because they were like, oh, this kid's fine. And then we moved to LA. So we were in Northern California. We moved to LA. Hudson was 3 years old and he just started regressing really big. And his sleep was the first to go. He stopped sleeping. Like maybe 3 hours a night he would sleep. That was super hard. And then he lost his speech. And we found out he was having absent seizures like constantly, which we knew he was at risk from his birth. But I didn't know much about seizures. I thought of seizures as like your body convulsing, I wasn't really in tune to absent seizures. And I was like, hey, he's like blanking out. And so we found that out. And then, his body kind of followed with lots of sensory issues and things like that. So it was a big regression. And I had, by the time he was 4, we were just in full blown like doctor's appointments, neurologists, therapies, starting school in a new town. And I had 5-year-old twins who one day, one of them came up to me and said, Mom, do you love Hudson more than us? Which broke my heart. It broke my heart. And I mean, that's why I say I'm so thankful that I have twins because they've always had each other. And I think it would have been a much harder process if they didn't.
Yep.
And they had somebody their age, it's different. It's different. Like even Hudson and my twins are close in age, but it's different being like identical twin, like somebody who's going everything through you. So I feel like that helped me out a lot. But yeah, it was tough because I had to balance them and Hudson with this huge regression. I didn't know what to do. Like, yeah, I have this background in, with autism.
And the emotion that comes with that. I mean, it's not just a clinical diagnosis. This is the emotion that comes with seeing your child who was progressing, and it seemed to really, break all expectations, and in a miracle child start to regress and regress significantly. That's a lot to take on.
Yeah, it was a lot. So yeah, the twins also, one of them was kind of Hudson's safe spot, and he was very compassionate with Hudson and would hug him a lot and like just is a little more nurturing. Where my other one is a little more just like competitive. I mean, they're both competitive, but he's just a little more like competitive and plays rougher and, things like that. And as Hudson was regressing, he was also, I mean, I can't imagine how he felt, I can't imagine what he went through. And I remember there was a time that I could not walk around anywhere without him holding on to me.
Wow.
And I just feel like he was like, I was his safe spot, and he was going through so much that I can't even imagine. And I think it was just like he had to be by me all the time because, he was like losing his way to communicate. One of my twins had a hard time with Hudson for a little bit. And Hudson would, get frustrated and get a little aggressive with his brothers. And they'd be like, he's so mean. And he's, and I would have to be like, he's frustrated. Like he can't talk. He can't tell us like how, and we had a lot of those conversations. And something I always did from the very beginning is I always talked very openly about autism with our whole family. Like it was always something that was just like, how's Hudson? So Hudson wasn't, as he regressed, it wasn't like, oh, he has autism. That's what it is. It was, a year of, I don't think it's autism.
Wow.
I think it's a seizure disorder. Oh, he did have this birth. It's probably this. It was a long process. Yes. And we just talked openly about it. So I think people often ask me, how do you talk about autism with your kids? Like, how do you talk about it? And it was just something so normal that eventually autism was the word to use for it. Oh, Hudson's, he lost his words. He can't speak anymore. And that's really frustrating. His body feels differently. And, we don't know what that feels like for us. We don't know what it feels like to him, but his body's feeling differently to him. And we have to help his body. We have to give him different ways of communicating. Like that's him communicating. And so I think I just described what was happening as much as I could. I'm sure I wasn't correct. Like Hudson probably sometimes is like, no, that's not what's happening. But I did the best I could to describe it to my twins and just part of our conversation so that, I mean, by the time my boys were 6, my twins were 6, they could describe it themselves to their friends. And that has been the biggest, I mean, talk about inclusion. My twins have done more for inclusion than I have, like times 1,000. Yeah. All of their friends come over and are like, hey, Hudson, what's up? Like, high five, like, dab it up. And, they just treat him like how my twins treat him, which is like their little brother, not like a kid with a disability. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it took a bit, or just like ups and downs in their relationship to learn what was happening. It affected us all. They are his biggest advocates, and they have a great relationship. And seeing Asher and Ledger grow now, they're 11. And it's incredible to see how much they get it. Like to see Asher and Ledger will even like talk to each other about it. Because Hudson still, like, he has a hard time controlling his body.
Yeah.
He will get, he'll hit them or squeeze them, or he gets really frustrated, or even excited, or, however he's feeling, like, has to come out in his body somehow. And so there's times he, like, will grab them or even pull their hair. And that's frustrating, like if your brother's doing that. And the other one will always step in now and be like, he can't control his body. Like, he's probably feeling frustrated. And just to see them step in for each other like that is pretty incredible. Because that's hard. That's hard to do, especially at 11 years old.
That's exactly right. And my guess is that will only continue to become even more prevalent in their lives as they continue to mature and have experience with Hudson, that role that they are taking as his older brother will only become more and more prominent that way. I have one last question that I wanted to ask you before I let you go. The question is in fact, it is this. Imagine that you have a mother who is listening to this podcast that is new to this journey of autism and maybe just has received the diagnosis or is in the process of really coming to grips with what things may look like for their son or their daughter. What would you say to them as they embark on this journey?
Automatically, that makes me emotional because I know that time is really hard. And it's really hard to get faced with, hey, my child's future is going to be different than what I had pictured.
Yeah.
And I would say to that, it's okay. And I know that sounds so simple, but it is okay. It's all your feelings that you're having, feel them. They're not wrong. They're not bad. They're normal. And I get hundreds of messages a day from autistic moms, all feeling exactly the same way. Like, it is normal. Also, the beginning is really hard. It's really hard. Not a lot of people are going to help you. So go to your moms. Find a community of autism moms, because I think that is the most beneficial to you, of people relating to you and understanding. And if you can't find people, you can go online and find people, because they are there. And like my community, I don't have people here in St. George. I haven't lived here that long, but I do have a community online, and it helps a ton. Right. And it's going to get easier. It's going to get better. And not because your child's going to get easier or get better, or, like, oh, everything's going to work out and you're not going to have ups and downs. Like, you still are. And you're going to have big ups and you're going to have big downs. But it gets better because you get stronger. You grow. You will grow. And you will be so amazed with the growth that you will have, that your child will have. And I promise it's still a good life. It's still a very meaning and purposeful life. And the one that you thought it's okay to mourn, that it's not that, but that doesn't mean it's not great. It's still great.
What a beautiful response. And I hope that those moms out there, that this is applicable are able to hear this and that they share this with other moms that are just embarking on this journey. So that's a beautiful response. I think that's tremendous advice. I will say I started this podcast with the idea of inspiring parents and caretakers, families to be able to overcome and conquer their clownfish. Clownfish referencing our favorite movie, Finding Nemo, and this overprotective father who's been entrusted with this little guy with the lucky fin that has a disability, who's spent his entire life trying to help Nemo or trying to protect Nemo, when all along he really could be empowering Nemo to sing that song that he's meant to sing. And I look at you as a perfect example of somebody who has conquered their clownfish and who is truly allowing Hudson to sing the song that he is meant to sing. And so I'm excited to continue to follow your journey. I can't wait to see what the many years hold in store for Hudson and your family, and just the beautiful work that you're doing. So Kaley, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Conquering Your Clownfish. If you liked what we discussed on the podcast today and want to continue the conversation, please visit us at conqueringyourclownfish.com. And please don't forget to subscribe.